So mussels remind me of summer. Sitting on a terrace or a patio with a big plate of mussels, maybe a glass of white wine, the sun shining, it's just perfection. And it turns out that making mussels is really quite easy and also really quite affordable. In today's video, we're going to explore another recipe from Anthony Bourdain's Les Halles cookbook, where he dives into Moules Marinieres.
Moules Marinieres.
I'm never going to say it properly, so I'm not going to subject you to more of my terrible French. It's actually really easy to make if you follow the 3 steps that I'm going to outline for you in today's video. Let's get started. So here I have a whole kilogram of fresh live mussels that I bought at the market earlier today. So there's a few different things that we need to do to turn this guy into a really delicious dish. And the first thing is we've got to learn how to clean them up and prepare them, which involves a couple of different steps. First things first, let's wash them under cold water to remove any of the sort of little pebbles or seaweed or those types of things that might be left on the mussels. So they're still gonna look a little dirty at this point. That's because of this little thing here called the beard. We'll come back to that in a second. The next thing that we need to do is we need to get rid of the dead ones. So like this one, hopefully you can see it on the camera. Any ones that have opened, they are likely dead. You can try and close them. They should close, but if they're open at all, these are dead. We need to get rid of them. Just basically throw them out. So we're gonna sort through these, putting the dead ones in one bowl and the live ones in another bowl. I'm gonna speed this up a little bit so we can get through this faster. So now I've got 2 bowls. I've got a big bowl here full of mussels that are still alive. And I've got a smaller bowl here, which are dead mussels, which we're not gonna cook. So the final step in getting these mussels ready is, so we need to de-beard this. This is the beard of the mussel. Just need to take this off. We don't wanna cook it. I think this is what the mussel uses to like grab onto things. There was one mussel in mine that the shell was completely broken, and you can even see the pieces of shells in there. Long story short, we don't want to eat those, and thankfully getting them off is really quite easy. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a butter knife. This works really well because it's not very sharp, and then basically just hold the mussel firmly in one hand, your knife firmly in the other, press down and pull. This is gonna take a little bit of force. You just need to pull it out basically as hard as you can, and then once you do that, you've got a fully cleaned mussel that we can use in our next step. So we've got a whole bowl of fresh mussels here that are completely cleaned and ready to be cooked. I'll show you how to cook them in a few minutes, but before we do that, we need to start building a bunch of flavor in our dish. The Anthony Bourdain recipe includes shallots, but after going to 3 different grocery stores, I couldn't find any, so we're gonna improvise. This is a red onion, which has a lot of the same characteristics as a shallot, and it's just gonna have to work because I can't find shallots. Thankfully, the process is exactly the same. We're just gonna slice this as thin as we possibly can, and then set it aside. I'm gonna get a large pot with its lid. You wanna make sure the lid is tightly fitting. This is crucial to this recipe. You'll see why in just a few seconds. So let's get to it. Let's start building some flavor. I'm gonna add some butter into the pot and turn the heat up to medium-ish. Then once it's melted, we're gonna add in those shallots that we cut down just a second ago. I'm gonna cook these for a few minutes. We don't want them to brown. What we want them to do is just have some of their water cook off so that it intensifies the flavor. This is called cooking without color, cooking them until they're translucent. It should look a little something like this. Now we're gonna keep building flavor by adding an acidic component to the sweetness of the onions, which in this case is white wine. It's gonna help balance out some of the natural saltiness of those mussels. I'm gonna crank up the heat as high as it'll possibly go. We want this to come up to a boil, and then I'm gonna season it with a little bit of salt and pepper, and then we're just gonna dump our mussels into this pot. Now on goes my tight-fitting lid, and these are going to steam right in this pot, and we finish the second component of Anthony Bourdain's mussels. So the mussels are simmering away on the stove. They're gonna take about 10 minutes or so, which is gonna give us enough time to talk about the third and the final step to turning these into something really delicious, and that's creating our sauce. Now, I think a lot of people get sort of freaked out when it comes to making sauces, but with these, it's shockingly easy, and we're gonna use just a couple of ingredients to turn what's in the bottom of this pot of mussels into something that's gonna just take this to a whole nother level. But before we do that, let's check on our mussels and see if they're done. I'm gonna fish one out to show you what it looks like when it's done. It basically just opens up. It looks a little something like this. Any that didn't open up, you just wanna throw out, but because we did all that work at the beginning, you really shouldn't have any of those in your pot of mussels. So I'll throw this back in and we'll get to making the sauce. I'm gonna start with some parsley, and I've also got some leftover chives. I'm going a little off book here. I'd like to say that's because I'm trying to balance for not actually having the shallots and adding a little bit more onion with the chives, but that'd be a lie. I just have some extra chives kicking around, and I figured why not put them in here. Add those in, throw the lid back on, and give it a shake. Now all we need to do is enrich the sauce. Some recipes have you taking the mussels out of the pot here and working on the sauce separately. The Bourdain recipe wants to keep this as simple as possible. Some people add mayonnaise, some people add cream. We're just gonna keep it as French as possible and add in a knob of butter. Just give it a stir, and that will help this turn into a super velvety, super luxurious sauce for our mussels. Basically, the sauce makes itself the way that Anthony Bourdain makes it. And I mean, there's a ton of food here. These look awesome. I think the only thing that we need to add to this is some bread to dip up all this delicious sauce that's on the bottom. I've got a nice looking boule from my local bakery. I'm gonna get a nice thick slice here and take it over to my stove to grill it. This looks perfect. It's time to eat. Here's a good tip with mussels. Once you're done the first one, you can use the empty shell as a great way of getting inside the next one. Oh, they're salty, they're bright from that white wine, just fantastic. I mean, the other thing that I need to do is try the sauce on the bottom. It's just so perfect. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Sauce